It wasn't scheduled. That's what made everyone uneasy. The arena lights were already dimming, crew packing cables, the ring supposed to be done for the night. Just another rehearsal before the live event. No cameras rolling, no script in play. Then Dwayne Johnson stepped back into the ring. Not for the crowd, not for the show, for John Cena. Cena was leaning against the ropes, towel around his neck, breathing steady. He just finished running through a sequence, relaxed, confident, completely in control of the space. Dwayne looked at him and said it plainly. "Get in." Cena raised an eyebrow, half smiling. "For what?" Dwayne didn't smile back. "Hit me." The word echoed louder than it should have. A few crew members froze. Someone near the timekeeper stopped mid-step. This wasn't how rehearsals went. Not between two top guys. Not without direction. Cena laughed once. Not mocking. Curious. "You serious?" Dwayne nodded. "Full speed," he added. "Just once." That changed the air. Cena straightened. He knew Dwayne wasn't joking. The tone was wrong for that. Calm. Certain. Like a man who'd already measured the outcome. "This isn't smart," Cena said quietly. Dwayne stepped closer, planted his feet in the center of the ring. 3 seconds, he said. "That's all." Cena hesitated. Not because he doubted himself, but because he suddenly realized he didn't fully understand what Dwayne was testing. The ring fell silent. Then Cena raised his hands. And committed. Cena moved first. Not with hesitation, with instinct. A sharp step in. Clean right. Not reckless, not playful. Controlled power, the kind he'd thrown 1,000 times in front of millions. Dwayne didn't flinch. He didn't brace. Didn't tense. Didn't even raise his hands. He shifted. Barely. As Cena's punch came in, Dwayne rotated his torso just enough to let the force slide past center. One forearm guided the strike offline while his lead foot stepped inside the space Cena thought he owned. It all happened faster than thought. The punch missed its target not by inches but by intention. In the same motion, Dwayne's shoulder made contact with Cena's chest. Not a shove. Placement. His other hand settled briefly at Cena's elbow, redirecting momentum like a door swinging on a hinge. Cena's balance broke. Not violently, not dramatically, just enough. His heel lifted. His weight shifted forward. The ropes suddenly felt farther away than they should have been. Dwayne released him immediately. 1 second. Cena blinked, reset his feet, breathing sharper now. 2 seconds. The ring was silent except for the soft squeak of canvas under shoes. 3 seconds. Dwayne stepped back. "That's it," he said. Cena stood there, hands still up, staring. "What the hell was that?" he asked. Dwayne shrugged. "Timing." Cena shook his head slowly, replaying the movement in his mind. He hadn't been countered. He hadn't been blocked. He'd been displaced. He tried to recreate it alone. A step, a punch, a pivot. It didn't work. Not without someone guiding the moment. The crew didn't speak. They didn't need to. Everyone in that building felt it. This wasn't about strength. It was about control of space and who understood it better. Cena lowered his hands. "Again," he said. Dwayne smiled, just slightly this time. "Later," he replied. "History only needs 3 seconds." No one clapped. That was the strange part. In wrestling gyms, reactions were immediate. Cheers, jokes, someone breaking the tension. This time, nothing. Just a quiet recalibration spreading through the ring like a low current. Cena rolled his shoulders once, slow and deliberate. Not to show strength, to feel balance. Something had been taken from him for a split second, and he needed to understand how. "You didn't block me," he said. "You moved me." Dwayne nodded. "Blocking meets force with force," he replied. "Moving changes the equation." Cena stepped back toward the center of the ring, eyes focused now, no smile. "You could have done more." "Yes," Dwayne said. "But then you'd be thinking about pain instead of position." That landed. Cena leaned against the ropes, arms resting on the top strand. He stared at the canvas, replaying every micro-movement. The step, the angle, the moment his weight betrayed him. 3 seconds. That was all it took to feel out of place in a space he dominated for years. I thought you were testing toughness, Cena admitted quietly. Dwayne shook his head. I was testing awareness. The crew remained frozen, pretending to adjust things that didn't need adjusting. Everyone knew they'd witnessed something unscripted. Not a stunt, not a drill, but a lesson. Cena straightened up. Most guys would have tried to prove something, he said. You didn't. There was nothing to prove, Dwayne replied. You already hit hard. That wasn't the question. Cena looked up, meeting his eyes. Then what was? Who controls the moment? Dwayne said. Another pause. Cena nodded slowly, the way someone does when a belief shifts instead of breaking. He stepped forward and extended his hand. Show me again, he said. Later. Properly. Dwayne shook his hand once. Firm. Respectful. Anytime. The lights dimmed further. The ring crew finally moved. The rehearsal was officially over. But no one left right away. Because 3 seconds had just redrawn the hierarchy. Not on paper, not on a poster. In understanding. They didn't talk about it that night. That's how you knew it mattered. Cena showered, changed, moved through the locker room quieter than usual. No jokes. No music. Just thought. The kind that settles in when something you trusted gets challenged without being threatened. Dwayne left early. Not to avoid questions. To let the moment breathe. The next day, word hadn't spread. Not because people didn't want to talk, but because no one knew how to frame what they'd seen. There was no headline for it. No winner. No loser. Just a shift. During warm-ups, Cena watched differently. He paid attention to feet instead of fists. Distance instead of power. When Dwayne stepped into the ring later, Cena noticed how little space he needed to feel comfortable. Do it again, Cena said quietly once the ring was clear. Dwayne nodded. This time, Cena committed faster. Sharper. He adjusted his timing, tried to close the gap sooner. For a fraction of a second, it felt like it might work. Then the same thing happened. Not identical, refined. Dwayne didn't redirect the punch. He stepped into the line of force and turned the moment sideways. Cena's balance shifted before his mind caught up. His weight betrayed him again. No impact. No pain. Just displacement. Cena stepped back, breathing harder now. That wasn't strength, he said. That was something else. Structure, Dwayne replied. Your power is real, but structure decides where it goes. Cena laughed once, under his breath. All these years, he said, I thought being strong meant owning the ring. Dwayne shook his head. It means knowing when the ring stops being yours. That stayed. From that day on, rehearsals changed. Cena asked questions he'd never asked before. Not about moves, about spacing, angles, timing. Why something worked instead of just whether it did. The ring became quieter. Not empty, focused. And everyone around them felt it. Because when two men stop competing and start understanding, the entire room recalibrates. 3 seconds hadn't created dominance. They'd created depth. The ring never forgets moments like that. Even when the lights go out. Even when the crowd is gone. Cena felt it the next time he stepped between the ropes. The space felt smaller, not tighter, but more honest. Like it no longer tolerated wasted movement or empty power. He adjusted without announcing it. Shorter steps. Cleaner entries. Less force. More intention. Dwayne watched from outside the ropes, arms crossed, saying nothing. He didn't coach. He didn't correct. He waited. When Cena finished the sequence, breathing steady but focused, he looked up. That thing you did, Cena said. You didn't take my power away. Dwayne nodded. I let it miss. Cena leaned against the ropes, thinking. No one ever taught me that, he said. They taught me to hit harder, faster, louder. That works, Dwayne replied. Until it doesn't. That answer stuck. Over the next few sessions, Cena stopped chasing dominance. He started studying moments. The half step before contact. The angle where strength mattered less than placement. The silence before movement. Crew members noticed the difference on camera. Scenes flowed. Movements felt sharper. Nothing looked forced. The ring stopped looking like a battlefield and started looking like a conversation. One producer whispered it during playback. "They're not trying to outdo each other. That was the point." Later, as they wrapped for the night, Cena stood alone in the ring. He ran a hand over the ropes, grounding himself. 3 seconds. That's all it had taken to reframe years of belief. Not because he'd been beaten, because he'd been shown something. Dwayne met him at the steps. "You good?" he asked. Cena nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Better than good." He paused, then added, "Thanks for not turning it into a spectacle." Dwayne smiled faintly. History doesn't need noise. The ring stayed quiet, but it remembered. The shift didn't stop at training. It followed Cena outside the ring. In meetings, he spoke less, listened more. He noticed how often he'd filled space just because he could. How often momentum came from pressure instead of precision. That night, alone in his hotel room, he replayed the moment again. Not the movement, but the absence of it. The way Dwayne hadn't rushed, hadn't flexed, hadn't proven anything. He realized something uncomfortable. Strength that needs to be demonstrated is still asking permission. The next rehearsal, Cena arrived early. No entourage, no music, just him and the ring. He walked the perimeter slowly, counting steps, measuring distance with his feet instead of his eyes. Dwayne arrived later and stopped when he saw it. "You changed something," he said. Cena nodded. "I stopped trying to win moments." Dwayne leaned against the apron. "Good," he replied. "Moments are traps." They ran the sequence again. Slower. Cleaner. Every move had a reason now. No wasted force. No empty aggression. 3 seconds had done what years of repetition hadn't. They'd separated power from control. The crew felt it immediately. The camera loved it. The ring responded differently. Movements landed with clarity instead of impact. Afterward, Cena sat on the edge of the ring, towel over his shoulders. "You know what scares me?" he said. "How long I went without knowing this." Dwayne didn't soften it. "That's not the scary part," he said. "The scary part is how many never find out." Cena looked up. "And you?" Dwayne paused. "I learned it the hard way," he said. "Same as you. Just earlier." They didn't say more. They didn't need to, because 3 seconds had already done the work. Not by taking something away, but by revealing what had always been missing. The change wasn't temporary. That was the difference. Weeks passed. New cities. New arenas. Different crowds. But the way Cena moved never fully went back to what it had been before. He still hit hard. Still moved fast. Still commanded attention. But now there was restraint layered under everything. A patience that hadn't been there before. He waited for moments instead of forcing them to exist. Dwayne noticed it during a live run-through. Cena stepped into the ring, scanned the space once, then adjusted without being told. A half step here. Pause there. The crowd felt it even if they couldn't explain why. "That's control," Dwayne said quietly from ringside. Cena nodded, eyes forward. "That's what you showed me." After the show, they sat alone in the empty arena. Thousands of seats. No noise. Just echoes. "You know," Cena said, "people think history gets made with big moments. Big moves. Big statements." Dwayne leaned back, arms folded. "It usually gets made when someone stops repeating the same mistake." Cena laughed softly. 3 seconds. 3 seconds, Dwayne agreed. That moment had followed them, not as a story, but as a standard. Crew members felt safer. Performers trusted the flow more. The ring became less chaotic, more intentional. Cena started teaching it quietly to others. Not explaining it, demonstrating it, letting them feel the difference the same way he had. No speeches, no credit, just clarity passed forward. That's how real lessons survive. Not because they're told, but because they're experienced. And every time Cena stepped into the ring after that, the ring responded differently. Because it remembered. And so did he. By the time the event went live, the crowd had no idea. They cheered the entrances. They roared at the standoffs. They reacted to the moments they were meant to see. But underneath it all, something invisible was guiding the rhythm. Cena felt it with every step. He no longer rushed the ring. He let it come to him. The pauses were longer now, the choices fewer but sharper. When he moved, it wasn't to dominate. It was to decide. Dwayne watched from across the arena, not evaluating, confirming. The 3 seconds hadn't created a new move. They'd removed unnecessary ones. After the match, backstage buzzed like it always did. Voices overlapping, adrenaline fading. Someone joked about strength. Someone else flexed for a camera. Cena didn't join in. He sat, wrapping his hands slowly, replaying moments that never made it to the screen. The half step before contact. The angle that shifted everything without force. A younger performer approached him, nervous. "How do you know when to go?" he asked. Cena thought about it, then answered honestly, "When you don't have to ask." The kid nodded, not fully understanding yet, but feeling it. Later, Cena found Dwayne near the exit. They didn't talk about the match. They didn't need to. "You good?" Dwayne asked. Cena smiled. "Not the old one. The quiet kind." "Yeah," he said. "I finally am." They shook hands once. Firm. Equal. No cameras. No crowd. Just two men who understood that strength stops being loud the moment it becomes real. 3 seconds had done that. Not by making history visible, but by making it permanent. What made those 3 seconds powerful wasn't that people saw them. It was that no one needed to. There was no clip to replay, no angle to analyze, no slow motion proof. Yet everyone who worked around them felt the difference immediately. Cena carried it into every interaction. He didn't posture in conversations anymore. He let silence do work. When disagreements came up, he didn't push first. He waited. Often, the problem solved itself. That patience spread. Performers started trusting the space instead of trying to own it. Crew members stopped bracing for tension that never arrived. The ring felt steadier, like it finally had a center. One night, long after the show ended, Cena sat alone in the empty arena. The lights were off except for a single work lamp above the ring. The canvas looked different in the quiet. Smaller, more honest. He stepped between the ropes and stood still. 3 seconds. That was all it took to expose a lifetime habit. Not weakness. Noise. He realized how often he'd equated movement with momentum. How often he'd believed doing more meant being more. Dwayne had never corrected him verbally. Never told him what to change. He'd let him feel it. That was the lesson. True control doesn't interrupt. It absorbs. When Dwayne walked in quietly from the tunnel, Cena didn't turn right away. He didn't need to. "You still thinking about it?" Dwayne asked. Cena nodded. "Yeah, I think I always will." Dwayne leaned against the ropes. "Good. That means it worked." They stood there in silence. No hierarchy. No challenge. Just understanding. 3 seconds hadn't rewritten careers. They'd rewritten perspective. And that kind of history doesn't fade. It settles. Years later, people would still argue about that era. About who was the strongest. Who carried the room. Who really owned the ring. But the people who were there never argued. They remembered something quieter. They remembered how the room felt after. John Cena carried that moment longer than he expected. Not as a story, not as a lesson he repeated, but as a filter. Every decision passed through it. Every movement questioned it. Is this necessary? Or is this noise? That question followed him everywhere. In matches. In meetings. In moments where ego used to step in first. He learned to wait half a second longer. To let others finish. To let situations reveal themselves before acting. Most of the time, the answer appeared without force. Dwayne Johnson never checked in on the lesson. Never asked if it stuck. He didn't need to. The way Cena moved told him everything. They crossed paths years later at an event. No ring. No lights. Just a quiet backstage hallway. They shook hands. Nothing else was said, because both of them knew something most people never learn. That strength isn't proven in impact. It's proven in restraint. That history isn't always loud. Sometimes it's felt. 3 seconds didn't create a headline that night. They created a shift that didn't need one. A moment where power stepped aside for understanding. Where dominance gave way to structure. Where the ring stopped being a place to win and became a place to decide. And long after the crowd forgot the matches, that standard remained. Invisible, unspoken, permanent, because real history doesn't echo, settles and stays.